And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to yet another LinkedIn Live on GTM, on AI, and everything that's happening. Everything is changing really fast. We are already in 2026. It's been a month, but it feels like there's a lot that's happening. There's Meltbot that happened, which is like the social media platform of AI agents. There'll be AGI. AI will take over the world, take over humanity. I don't know. There have been so many talk tracks, and we have an amazing person here on the live with us today, Karthi. I love her. I love her energy. And she's here to talk about brands, but I think she can talk about any topic that we discuss with her. So I'll start with a quick intro, though she did not want me to do that, but I still want to do that so that you guys have an idea what amazing personality she is. But this introduction doesn't do justice to her yet. Let's start. She's the co-founder of Audience Haus and one of the sharpest voices in category design and GTM strategy. So category creation and design, I think I just heard about, but I probably did not even know what it really means until I met Karthi and she told me and she talked about it and with all her energy that she has. And she's helped founders across startups, scale ups, and even enterprise move past the traditional way you think about a brand and actually design categories that reshape how markets see them, how your ICPs see them. So she's the one you call when you want to get clarity on how does a brand get growth and what does category creation even mean. So when we actually announced this live, we had a lot of questions around this, that what is the difference between branding and category marketing. And I think Karthi is here to answer all of those questions. But first, Karthi, please tell us how has your journey been so far? What made you think about marketing and category and everything in between?
I'm an only child, and funnily enough, normally, the sort as you sort of given a label, right? Like if you're an only child, different middle child gets a label, only child gets a label, right? First, so only child label is always that that we're hyper competitive, but I actually really hate competing. Like I prefer to just create my own path. So when I read Play Bigger, I was like, oh my God, this makes total sense to me that you don't compete for a market, you create a new one. So and that's kind of how I got into category creation.
That's an interesting thought, that don't compete, create a market. But don't competition still exist in that market? Like, is it like competition free then?
No, it's not competition free, right? So the difference is when you say don't compete, create a market, what it means is so the difference I'll break this down as much as possible at fundamental levels, right? When you're competing in a market that's already created, you're competing in an existing market in which someone else has written the rules and you're just playing along. You're allowed to be in that until such time the leader or whomever who wrote those rules doesn't change the rules. So you're in someone else's frame. You're allowed to be there until such time the leader allows you to be there. If the leader moves the needle or changes the frame, then either you will have to pivot really, really quickly, or you are now disallowed from being inside that market, right? But when you create the market, you're the person who drew the frame. So you control the causal arc, like you control the causality of what happens in that category. But if you are only playing inside it, then you're truly just correlating, which is why you see a lot of attribution models fail when it comes to brand.
No, that makes sense. But can you explain it to us with an example? Because when you think about an innovative solution to a problem,
Yeah.
still there is a way that people are doing it. So how do you change that? How do you design a category? If you can explain with an example, I think it'll be easier.
So, I mean, they're very simple. I mean, do you want me to do a political example or like a SaaS example? Or, yeah, sorry?
Any example would do.
Yeah. So, I mean, so the thing about category creation is it's not new. It feels like it's new to SaaS, but it has existed for as long as humanity could when humanity had language, category creation was born. Like religion fundamentally is category design. Democracy is category design. Right? It's you enforcing your worldview. And so category creation at a fundamental level is built on humans buying in to a shared narrative and a belief system. So governments are categories because they only exist because we accept that they exist. They're not real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's real because we accept that system as real. Money only exists because humans have assigned value to it and accept that this value is how we're going to build society, right? Religion exists because we will have a shared narrative that we believe in heaven, hell, and God, and all of that stuff, right? So it's the same with anything. Democracy is the same thing. A system of governance we all accept because we want to vote, we want to be sovereign, we accept that narrative, so it exists. So B2B SaaS, Uber, online streaming, it's all the same. It exists because we participate in it.
Mhm. Okay.
So it's how much you get people to participate in a shared narrative is the starting point. Like, so when Henry Ford developed the T model, one of the things he said, which was really like cool, was he said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yes, very true. No, so it's there's a question that's come up. Do you need deep pockets to attempt category creation? And how do you look at it in a fiscally responsible way? So that's a
Yeah.
question from the audience.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, right? So there was a predominant narrative, like up until a couple of years ago, maybe, that category creation is very expensive, right? One, because it's a long game, right? You don't realize revenue immediately, and you're basically engineering demand, you're creating demand, so you're seeding the market, so there's a lot of investment that needs to go with that, right? So that was like what I would call like category 1.0, right? But if you take category 2.0, and with category creation becoming more mainstream and acceptable by VCs and PEs, and people just generally understanding category creation as a language, marketing language, and management consulting, people have found ways to hack it so that it isn't as expensive as what it used to be. And part of that is now to start with building a founder brand.
Okay.
Having the founder evangelize the strategy first, build a movement around themselves, and then sort of spread the category through the founder. And then of course AI has helped, narrative building, content building, creating, like, enforcing your narratives, your languaging, all of that a lot easier. Like the marketing content that's needed for category creation has gotten a lot easier with the advent of AI. So it's definitely not as costly as it used to be, but it's much more extreme than what it used to be.
Yes. No, this absolutely makes sense. And I think that the next question would be around, okay, it's not costly to probably create the content and put things out there and founders talking about it. But the question is what you mentioned first, that how many people are believing in that narrative and joining you in that. And I think that takes a lot of conviction, and that is like a change in attitude, because they are used to doing something a certain way. And now you're telling them, oh, no, don't do it like that. This is the new way. How do you do that? So, how do you
How
convince
do you
people?
believe? How do you get
Um,
people to believe?
yes, yes.
So basically, how you start, and there's a really good book that Eddie Yoon has written about super consumers, right? You effectively have to become the super consumer of your category. And what do you mean by that, right? Let's take an example. Shwati, what is something you absolutely like love looking at or shopping or like doing? Like, I'll go first. Like, I'm a huge athleisure like freak. Like, I love athleisure brands. I know a lot about them. I research about them. I know when the latest ones are coming. I actively buy them. So I know a lot about the brand, and I use athleisure in ways that normal people wouldn't use it.
Hmm.
So what you want is information like that when you're building a category narrative, right?
Okay.
So the founder has to become the super consumer of the category first. So they have to scratch the itch so badly that other people start believing, oh my God, I have that itch too.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I was thinking of ice creams, and then I thought about it that if I were to make a crazy flavors on ice creams, and that's how I think the whole, probably the category on nitrogen induced ice creams and all of that was launched because it was a different way to consume ice creams and like enjoy ice creams.
Yeah.
So
So
absolutely correct.
the fanatics are the people. So conventional wisdom would say, look at people who are using your product right, like in the sense that for the way you intended it to use, right? But category wisdom says, look for the outliers, the people who are using your system wrong.
Yes. No, that makes complete sense. But then, so let's get back to the question on the title of the day, which is also around brand building versus category creation. So, I mean, you spend a lot of time on category creation because you believe very strongly about the product that you're building. Does the brand follow automatically, or does brand building still needs to be done? And what all elements you need to be careful about?
So no, the brand doesn't follow automatically, right? So the brand building does have to be done. So think about it this way, right? When you build a category, you're like opening a dam, right? And the water is flowing everywhere, right? Your brand is what will help you capture as much water as possible. So you're opening the floodgates, right? So when you build a category, you're creating a market with massive demand, right? But your brand is like the aesthetic sort of emotional tie-in for people to say like, yeah, they created the category and also, oh my god, they're like awesome, so we want to buy them. Like the brand is what creates that aesthetic connection between the category and the company.
Okay. So here's a question that ties into what you're saying. So Dayal is asking, how should a how should a company know if it's just rebranding versus actually designing a new category?
Right. So that's really simple, right? If you're rebranding, it's very much like a color project. Do you know what I mean? Like you change your colors, you redo your stuff, you might redo rewrite some of your narrative, right, and all of that stuff. But how you know if you're actually designing a new category is, has the unit economics of how you explain what you're doing, has that changed? Right? Has it changed the identity of your end customer? Is it changing the identity of your end customer? So there are 3 or 4 markers like that. So you need a metric, a framework, and like an identity shift to happen for you to understand that you're truly building a new category. So you need to be able to define the unit economics in a manner that is extremely like causational.
Okay.
In that, for example, Uber's whole thing was like super simple. People were taking cabs before, right? But the frustration people had was you never knew when the cab was going to come because you didn't have visibility into when the cab was going to come, whether you would get one or not. The hack that Uber did, the biggest hack was, because it tells you it's going to come in 6 minutes, 7 minutes, or 8 minutes, and you can track where it's coming, you are now relaxed because you know it's 6 minutes away. So that was, so it created it created a unit economic shift in the market for people to measure.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that was
So
a new category.
so even what you're saying is that even like a product feature inclusion, which kind of changes the way consumers are experiencing the product, that itself can be new category design.
So not necessarily, right? So generally speaking, category creation, especially now with like AI, they don't consider features as a mode, right? It's more about the unit economics of how the software transforms the person who's using it. Like how, in what way does it transform the life of the person using it? So you need
Okay.
to be able to explain that.
Okay. So basically, you also have been mentioning that you don't own a category, like you said, you like basically open the floodgates, you earn it by creating clarity on what you are doing. So there's this whole thing around that HubSpot created this category around inbound. But essentially, inbound existed for the longest time. HubSpot gave it a name. It called it inbound and kind of put everything together. Would that also count as category creation, or do you think HubSpot actually created a category, or just basically gave a name to a category and did mass distribution around it? What's the difference?
So that's a really good example, right? So the fundamentals of category creation is, in retrospect, it feels obvious. It feels like we've always known this, right? But HubSpot was the one who named, framed, and claimed it.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes companies will name it, but they'll fail at the framing and the claiming. So someone else will take over. You'll name it, but you'll fail at the naming and the framing and the claiming, right? HubSpot did all three.
Okay. Can you also walk us? I think this is a good way, structured way to look at it: naming, framing, and then claiming it. Because I see that in our industry, which is there is a lot of names: generative engine optimization, LLM optimization, and then there's Profound, with $60 million in funding, which has created a new name called answer engine optimization, and they're distributing it heavily. So I understand the naming part, which I think is easier, that you understand what people understand, what they're talking about, and you kind of work with the influencers in that industry, with the leaders in that space, and understand what they're thinking and how they're thinking. But how do you work on the framing and the claiming part? I mean, naming is something which a lot of people start doing, and they feel it's easy.
Yeah. So the naming is easy. Yeah. So the framing and the claiming, right? So the framing is basically you telling people what are the boundaries of this category, what is in, what is out. Right? Effective. And when you draw the frame, and if you claim the frame and you're the leader of the frame, you can stretch the frame as you see fit, as you move along and as you mature. Right? Which is what, like, so for example, if you take like smartphones, right? So like, in essence, Steve Jobs coined that category, like with iPhones, right? But smartphones ended up becoming a super category, because without smartphones, Uber wouldn't exist, social media like Facebook wouldn't exist, gig economy.
Yes. I think we've lost Karthi. Is it my internet? So I think we've lost Karthi. I think we lost you for a while back.
Sorry, I was still talking. Yeah, so that was like a civilizational category change, right? But then there are others where you name and frame it like at a niche level. So one of the core philosophies of category design is, when you start naming, framing, and claiming, always niche down. Always find like a wedge in the market that you can name, frame, and claim and dominate. Once you do that, then you can expand out.
Okay, understood. So basically, start small, because I think that's the mistake. Because when people name the category, they try and claim bigger, yeah, a bigger real estate. They're like, I want to own the entire world, entire country.
You want to be like a dot.
Yeah, that's I think that's the great differentiation, because when you think of a name and think of a category, you immediately, what comes to mind is like a huge market, and like this big space that you own up, and everybody calls you the big boss there. But actually, you're right. The way to look at it is, go in, like, from inside out, you build it and keep building on that boundary. So it's like how we see civilizations growing, like, small hut, then a few villages set up, and then it grows into this big city. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much, Karthi, for giving that clarity. Now let's come to the AI part of the picture. Like again, going back to the title again, where does AI support all of this category creation? I know content writing definitely, but tell us something in some unique ways that AI can be used, and how founders can deploy it to truly build out a category and further brand building.
Okay. So the thing about AI, which is a little scary, right, is we understand emotion. We understand the emotional connection of a narrative and a category, right? Like, if I tell you, hey, this thing's gonna make you feel warm and fuzzy and like blah 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 and all that stuff, you would buy into it, because we're humans and we're fundamentally run on emotion, right? But AI doesn't understand emotion. right? AI doesn't understand at a fundamental level. It doesn't understand narrative. We've taught it to understand narrative through guardrails, but it can't relate to narrative, like in the sense that because it's not human. Like I said, this is a shared reality that we have invented and that we buy into, but AI doesn't understand that at like a fundamental level, right? But what AI understands is structure and ontology, right? So, for example, and to give you a previous example, right? Let's say somebody comes up tomorrow. They're really a water bottle brand, and I'm just making stuff up, right, as I go along. They're really a water bottle brand, but I'm just making stuff up as I go along. The water bottle brand, but they're saying they're an answer optimization engine. Okay. Humans might believe that. There are ways in which you can name, frame, claim, and hype around. Like, come on, we buy smart water. We buy water that's not smart. So, and we spend like $3 extra to buy it. Right? But if you tell AI that, it'll say, this water doesn't make you smart.
No, but the closest to smart water is what I can think of is what athletes drink. So I've been reading up on this that athletes' water comes from I don't know whatever some French springs or something, and it costs like some $1,000 a bottle, which is like 10, not even worth $10. But then yeah, that is smart water right there for you.
Smart water, right? But if you look at AI doesn't understand like our like affiliation to smart water, right? It'll look at it'll scan the web, it'll look at all the reviews, and it'll collapse you into the water category because it'll say there is no objective evidence for me to support that this water made people smarter.
Yes.
Right? So you really have to define the ontology for the AI to understand the category. So your category has to match the structure of what you say, not just the narrative. But at a structural level, you need to have evidence. You need to have like papers. You need to have customer reviews, all of which support exactly what your category narrative says. If not, AI will collapse you and say, oh, well, actually, your 95% of your features are CRM. So actually, you're a CRM.
Yes. So doesn't volume play a role here? So that gets me to my second question. That so volume is important for now. If you're in a competitive space, you're creating a category, but clearly you have competition who are also kind of masters of the original OG category, or maybe they're creating a new one. So volume would play then a very important role because if there's a bigger player who's pushing out a lot more content, then automatically AI would start categorizing your smart water into the like I don't know okay water category because the ones doing okay water are calling smart water bullshit and calling it bullshit with more volume. So what's your say? What how do you tackle that as a category
So
creator?
you might get a surge in the short term, right? But over a long term period, if you consistently have data that shows your smart water is actually okay water, it's going to say you are really just buying okay water. It'll say smart water claims to be Q smart, but it's actually just water.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, if I want to sell smart water, then I better keep on claiming it, even if I'm being called, if my customers claim, support the claim that this is smart water and it has made me smart, then I've
Yes,
created this category. But
100%.
yes, but if like people can keep saying other competition can keep talking about their okay water, saying that smart water is bullshit. But if I keep creating proof and keep
Correct.
giving proof, so then I'm creating that category slowly and steadily. So yeah, I get that. That
In the AI age, yes.
in
Right?
the AI that becomes it.
Call it smart water, and you could have a narrative around it. And if people share in the reality of smart water, then it's smart water.
That's really interesting. So we have another question from the comment section. It says, "What are the metrics that leadership should track to know if their category strategy is actually working beyond the basic vanity brand metrics?"
Yeah. So no. So brand metrics are not really a good measure, right? One big measure is share of voice, right? Especially when you're starting early, share of voice is a big brand metric. Two is the big one is your ACVs, right? If your ACV prices are going up, right? But if you're looking at even bigger deals, it's really your valuation and your share price.
Okay, that's very interesting. So basically, direct revenue metrics and not just, yeah,
100,
direct, something
100%.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
directly impacts.
the analogy that is given is that when you do category creation, marketing creates sales at scale.
Okay, makes sense. So, Karthi, of course, you are like you're the queen of category creation,
Really
but
not.
no, no, of course, I can vouch for that. Anyone who wants advice, then definitely go to Karthi. But how should founders who want to build out a category have that passion? Whose responsibility is it within the team? And how should founders look at growing? How should they build out this category creation team? Is it just marketing? Is it marketing and sales combined? How does it work within internally? How does it work? Like this vision.
Yeah, so category creation is, if you read the Playbook book, there are three pillars. One is category design, company design, and product design. So it is a management initiative, like it's a company-wide initiative, which has to be led and owned by the CEO of the company. And it has to be a very particular temperament of a founder who can do this, because it's not for someone who's looking for short wins. They need to understand it's a long game, right? It is a long game. Even with AI, it's still a long game, right? Your product needs to reflect your narrative and your category creation, and your company's culture and your values need to reflect the category that you're creating across the board in your company. Every single person, every single department has to be using the same language of your category, whether it's your marketing team, whether it's your brand team, which shouldn't exist, it should sit inside marketing, but your sales team, your product team, your documentation team, your tech writers, your CS team, your implementation consultants, your partners, your influencers, your VCs. Every single person has to be coached and be using the exact same thing.
Makes sense. I think that is what will then drive the change. I mean, you own it up inside out instead of just projecting outwards around it. So, okay, so you mentioned something that okay, only a certain type of founders can really do this activity. That gets me to a question, which is like, let's assume that the team founders everybody is ready to do that. Is category design still for everyone, or like, or how should a founder say, like all the founders and all the leaders who are attending the live today, how should they identify whether category creation is for them or not?
Well, I would say it's not for everybody. In fact, I would argue don't create a category, right? At all. It's like for 1% of people in the world to create categories, right? Predominantly because it require one, I always think that, and this is true, which is like it requires a particular type of temperament in the founder to be able to build it. One, they have to be so visionary that they should be able to see 5-10 years in advance. Right? And they need to be so passionately having an itch that they want to scratch, which they think is going to change the world.
Okay.
Right? And two, they genuinely need to be in love with what they're creating and want to create abundance for people who they're bringing this to life for. It's not about money. Comes regardless when you build a category and if you build it right, but the money has to be a byproduct of you creating this new thing and bringing it into the world. And that's really hard, because especially when you have VC pressure and you have targets that you need to meet and all of that. That's why part of category creation we always teach is that you have to pick, if you're doing category creation and deciding you're going to do it, you need to have the right type of investors. You have to design, just like you're designing your category, you have to design your investors who will support the category. And then you have to have the, you genuinely have to have like this mad scientist belief that you're going to change the world.
Yeah, I think it does boil down to that core belief into in with your product, what change, what problem you're solving, and what change you want to drive, so that you talk about it and you say you do this differently, and this is how your life would change, and that is the base essence of it, is from what I understand.
To leave you on just that, there's this quote, famous quote, I forget who said this exactly, but and it's very simple. It's like people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones that do.
Yes. So there's a question which says, is there a too late moment for category creation in a market shaped by AI? Can late entrants still win with the right wedge?
Oh,
So
1000%. Yeah. I mean, as long as you find the weak point, like, right. So, I mean, if you take like an engineering analogy, the once the bridge is built, they test it for the weakest point. They don't test it at the strongest point. So you want to find the weakest point in an existing category, and that's your entry.
wow, I think that's a great takeaway, because how do you enter that category? I mean, you think even my ICP is the same ICP, they're also targeting the same ICP, selling the same thing, and you use the similar words because your audience is like does not need to be educated. Then when you create a category, there's some education also that's needed, but find the weak point and like hit the nail there. So okay, we are almost on. We are like in fact we've crossed the
Oh,
time. Yes, we are time. No, but then we didn't realize where the time went. We had such great questions coming in that I had prepared some 10 questions, but I did not even have to open that document because we had questions coming in here. So, Karthi, we'll end with one last advice that you would want to give to marketers and founders who are attending this live for 2026 and beyond.
I would say be crazy enough to dream that you can change the world, and you will.
That's nice. I mean, what a thought to like end the live with. Thank you so much, Karthi, for taking out the time. And thank you everyone for joining the live today. Thank you.
Bye.